Aisha was like a bright star in the Faculty of Education. Everyone knew her. She was pretty, with long, shiny hair and a smile that could light up a room. But Aisha wasn't just known for her looks, she was known for her style. Her clothes were always new and expensive, her handbags were designer, and her shoes always sparkled. She loved feeling important, and she always hung out with the classy students, the ones who had rich parents and drove fancy cars. Aisha believed that to be somebody, you had to look rich and act important. Then there was Matthew. Matthew was the opposite of Aisha. He was the class representative for their 200-level class, which meant he helped students with their problems and talked to the teachers. Matthew was a quiet boy. He always wore simple, clean clothes that didn't cost much. He was smart and worked hard in his studies, but he didn't try to stand out. Most students liked him because he was helpful and kind, but Aisha barely noticed him. Or if she did, it was usually to make a joke about his plain ways. Deep down, Matthew had a big secret. He liked Aisha. A lot. He knew she was way out of his league, like trying to touch the moon. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. He saw how she laughed with her friends, how her eyes sparkled when she talked about fancy things. He knew he didn't have a lot of money, and he didn't dress like the guys she liked. But he thought, maybe, just maybe, she would see his good heart. One sunny afternoon, after a long lecture, the classroom was emptying out. Aisha was gathering her books, laughing loudly with her friends, Ify and Neka. Matthew watched her, his heart beating fast like a drum. He took a deep breath, trying to be brave. Now is the time, he told himself. He walked up to Aisha, his hands feeling sweaty. His voice came out a bit shaky. Aisha, I was wondering, would you like to go out with me sometime? Maybe for a drink or just to talk? Silence fell over Aisha and her friends. Ify and Neka stopped talking and stared at Matthew, then at Aisha, then back at Matthew, their eyes wide with surprise. Aisha slowly turned to face him, a slow, mocking smile spreading across her face. She looked him up and down, from his worn sandals to his simple shirt. "Did I hear that right, Matthew?" Aisha asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, loud enough for others nearby to hear. "You, the class rep? Asking me out?" She let out a short, sharp laugh, and her friends giggled behind their hands. "Are you serious, Matthew?" she continued, her voice getting colder. "Look at you, Matthew, and then look at me. Do you really think we belong together? I hang out with classy people, people who know how to dress, people who have money. You, well, you're just a mecca. Our poor class rep. Don't you think you're aiming a little too high?" Aisha then turned to Ify and Neka, rolling her eyes. "Can you believe it? The nerve!" Matthew felt a hot wave of shame rush over him. His face burned red. All the students who were still in the classroom looked his way. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. He felt so small, so foolish. He had tried to be brave, and Aisha had crushed him. He mumbled, I'm sorry, and quickly walked away, his head down, trying to disappear from the room. Aisha watched him go, then turned back to her friends, a smug look on her face. "Honestly, some people just don't know their place," she said, flipping her hair. Her friends nodded, confirming her feelings. Aisha felt powerful. She felt validated. This incident, to her, simply proved that she was right. Money and fancy things were all that mattered. Being poor was something to be ashamed of, something to be mocked, and she, Aisha, was definitely not poor. Time flew by quickly at the university. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. For Aisha, life continued to be a race for the best and most expensive things.
She wanted to be noticed, to be envied. She still believes that being classy meant having a lot of money and being seen with important people. She dated different guys, usually older ones who had fancy cars and could buy her expensive gifts. She loved the attention and the lavish lifestyle these relationships brought. One day in their final year, Aisha met Desmond. Desmond was charming. He had a way of talking that made everyone listen, and he seemed very cool. He dressed well, drove a nice car, and always had money to spend. Aisha was drawn to him right away. He was exactly the kind of guy she thought she needed to be with. Desmond was fun, but he also had a wild side. He liked to go to loud parties, and he often talked about stuff that made people feel really good, things that helped them forget their worries. At first, Aisha just listened. She thought she was too smart, too strong to try anything risky. But Desmond was persistent. He told her it was just for fun, that everyone was doing it. He said it would make her feel amazing, like she was floating. Aisha started going to more parties with Desmond. One night he offered her a small white pill. "Just try it, Aisha," he whispered, his eyes sparkling. "It's harmless. Everyone does it. It'll make you feel on top of the world." Aisha hesitated for a moment. She knew it was wrong. Her parents had always warned her about bad company and dangerous habits. But Desmond was looking at her, and her friends were around, laughing and dancing. She didn't want to seem uncool or afraid. She wanted to fit in, to be part of Desmond's exciting world. So, with a shrug, she took the pill. At first, she felt strange, then a rush of energy. Everything seemed brighter, funnier. She felt bold and fearless. After that first time, it became easier to say yes. She told herself she was just trying it, that she could stop any time. She thought she was in control. But soon, those little pills and powders became a regular part of her life with Desmond. She started needing them more often to feel normal, to escape the stress of university and the constant pressure to keep up appearances. Her studies started to slip, and she sometimes missed classes. But she pushed those worries away. Meanwhile, Matthew was living a very different life. After Aisha's public rejection, he had buried himself in his books. The humiliation had hurt him deeply, but it also made him more determined. He focused on his studies, spending hours in the library. He didn't try to be popular or flashy. He remained the quiet, hard-working class representative, always polite and ready to help. He still wore simple clothes, and he didn't drive a fancy car. Most students still saw him as just Matthew, the class rep. But his teachers and a few close friends saw something more. They saw his intelligence, his calm manner, and his unwavering dedication. He earned top grades and impressed everyone with his deep knowledge. He never talked about his family, never boasted about anything. He kept his private life truly private, a secret known only to himself and his family. He moved through the university quietly, like a shadow, but a very smart and respected shadow. While Aisha was chasing fleeting highs and outward glamour, Matthew was building a strong, hidden foundation for his future. It was their final year, and a buzz filled the air. Everyone at the university was excited about the upcoming convocation ceremony. This was a very important day, when students who had finished their studies would get their certificates and graduate. The whole university was preparing for it, cleaning, decorating, and making sure everything was perfect. The biggest news around campus was that a very important person would be attending the ceremony as a special guest. The chancellor of the university, who is the head of everything, had announced it himself. "We are honored," the chancellor had said, "to welcome a distinguished federal lawmaker representing our very own state to our convocation this year." Whispers went around. A federal lawmaker? Wow! Who could it be? Students and teachers alike wondered about this important visitor. Aisha, still caught up in her world with Desmond and the substances that clouded her judgment, didn't pay much attention to the news. She was more worried about her final exams and keeping her secrets hidden. She thought about how glamorous she would look at the ceremony, even if her grades weren't as good as they used to be. The day of the convocation arrived. The main hall was packed. Parents, friends, and important guests filled every seat. Aisha was there, dressed in her finest clothes, sitting with Desmond, though lately their relationship had been strained. She felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The ceremony began with speeches. Then it was time to introduce the special guest. The Chancellor walked to the podium, a big smile on his face. "And now," he announced, "it is my great honor to introduce a man who has tirelessly served our state and our nation, a true champion of education and progress, the Honorable Alhaji Ibrahim Yakubu." A loud clapping filled the hall. Everyone looked towards the main entrance. A tall, important-looking man in a fancy traditional outfit walked in, smiling and waving. But then a gasp went through the crowd. Aisha's jaw dropped. Her heart seemed to stop. Walking right beside Alhaji Ibrahim Yakubi, carrying himself with quiet confidence, was Matthew. Yes, that Matthew, the humble, simple class representative. The lawmaker beamed, pulling Matthew slightly forward. "And this," Alhaji Yakubu announced, his voice booming with pride, "is my only son, Matthew. He is also graduating from this very university today." A stunned silence fell over the hall for a brief moment, quickly followed by a rush of excited whispers. "Matthew? His son? The class rep? No way! But he always seemed so ordinary." Aisha felt like a bolt of lightning had struck her. Her mind raced back to that day in 200 level, the public rejection, her cruel words about Matthew being poor and not classy enough. She remembered mocking his simple clothes and his quiet ways. Now here he was, walking proudly beside one of the most powerful men in the state, his father. Her face grew hot. The memory of her humiliation of Matthew resurfaced, no longer a forgotten event, but a crushing weight. All those years, Matthew, the son of a federal lawmaker, had chosen to live simply, without showing off. He had been humble, quiet, and hardworking, never once using his family's wealth or power. And she, Aisha, had been so quick to judge him, to scorn him, based only on what she saw on the outside. The dean of the Faculty of Education, along with several lecturers who had always respected Matthew's intelligence and humility, looked on with knowing smiles. They had known parts of his story, perhaps not the full extent, but they weren't surprised by his quiet strength. Aisha felt a terrible churning in her stomach. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The boy she had called poor and not classy was the heir to immense wealth and influence, and she, in her blind pursuit of glamour, had shown herself to be truly shallow. The convocation ceremony, meant to be a day of triumph, had become a moment of profound, bitter revelation for Aisha. The shock of seeing Matthew with his powerful father at the convocation ceremony stayed with Aisha. Her mind kept replaying her harsh words, the way she had looked down on him. But before she could even truly deal with that crushing feeling, a new, much bigger storm gathered around her. News started to spread through the university. Whispers turned into loud talk. It was about Aisha. Someone had told the university leaders about her secret. It wasn't clear who, but the tip mentioned her involvement with harmful substances. Maybe it was someone who saw her with Desmond, or perhaps even Desmond himself, feeling the heat or wanting to protect himself, had said something under pressure. Soon, a letter arrived for Aisha. It was from the university. She had to appear before a disciplinary committee. This was a group of important teachers and staff who decided what to do when students broke the rules. Aisha felt a cold fear grip her. She tried to deny everything, to say it wasn't true, but the committee had strong evidence. They knew about the parties, about her missing classes, and about the substances. The meeting with the committee was quick and scary. Aisha's explanations sounded weak even to her own ears. The evidence was too much. After a short time, the committee made its decision. Aisha was to be rusticated from the university. Rustication meant she was sent away from school. It meant she couldn't finish her studies. Not now, maybe not ever. Her dream of graduating, of walking across that stage, was suddenly crushed. It was like a door slamming shut in her face, just when she was so close to finishing. The news hit Aisha like a giant wave. Her world, which she had built on fancy clothes and looking important, came crashing down. She felt alone and lost. But the bad news didn't stop there. When Desmond heard about Aisha's rustication, he didn't stick by her. He had always liked the fun, flashy Aisha. Now that she was in trouble, he didn't want to be around. He told her he was leaving her for another girl. "I can't deal with this, Aisha," he said, his voice cold. "It's too much." His words were like another sharp stab to her heart. The person she had trusted, who had led her into this trouble, was now abandoning her. Aisha felt completely broken. She had lost her university, her future, and now her boyfriend. She was forced to truly face the terrible choices she had made. The high she used to chase with the substances now felt like a dark, empty pit. She still had to attend parts of the convocation ceremony, though she wouldn't be getting a certificate. As she sat there, feeling invisible and ashamed, she saw Matthew again. He was on the stage, looking calm and proud, shaking hands with important people, including his father. He was graduating with honors, a quiet success story. Their eyes met for a brief moment across the crowded hall. Matthew's expression was unreadable. There was no anger, no triumph, just a quiet calm. For Aisha, it was a moment of painful contrast. His quiet success, built on hard work and humility, stood against her public disgrace, born from pride and bad choices. No words were needed. The vast difference in their paths was clearer than ever before. Aisha returned home from the university in shame. Her parents were heartbroken and disappointed. They had hoped to see her graduate, to celebrate her success. Instead, she came back with news of rustication, her dreams of a degree shattered. The house felt heavy with their silence and her own regret. The days that followed were hard. Aisha felt a deep emptiness inside her. The bright, fun world she had created for herself had vanished. Desmond was gone. Her university friends, who had enjoyed her company when things were good, quickly moved on. She was truly alone with the consequences of her choices. The hardest part was facing the truth about herself. She had always chased after outward appearances, believing that money and popularity were everything. Now she had neither, and she realized how little she actually knew herself. The substances she had taken with Desmond, which once seemed to offer an escape, now felt like a heavy chain around her neck. She knew she needed help. It was a long and difficult journey. Aisha started to attend meetings and talk to people who understood what she was going through. She learned about addiction, about healing, and about finding strength within herself. It wasn't easy. There were days when she felt like giving up, days when the shame of her past was too heavy. But slowly, little by little, she started to find her way back. She began to see the true worth wasn't about expensive clothes or a fancy boyfriend, but about honesty, hard work, and good character. She picked up old hobbies, read books, and spent time helping her family around the house. It was a slow path, but it was a path towards redemption. Meanwhile, Matthew's life unfolded differently. He graduated from the university with flying colors, walking across the stage with his proud father, the Honorable Elijah Bakuyaku, by his side. Matthew's humility, even with his family's great wealth, made him an admired figure among his teachers and the few students who truly knew him. He had never used his father's name or money to get ahead, proving that success could be earned through quiet dedication and hard work. After graduation, Matthew went on to pursue advanced studies, preparing himself for a future where he could use his intelligence and his family's influence for good. He continued to be the same humble, respectful person, always remembering where he came from and the lessons he had learned. The story of Aisha and Matthew became a quiet lesson within the university circles. It showed how quick judgments based on money and looks could be so wrong. It showed that true wealth was not just about what you had, but who you were inside. Aisha was learning this hard lesson every day, rebuilding her life piece by piece. Matthew, on the other hand, was moving forward, a silent example of success earned through integrity and quiet strength, a stark contrast to the girl who once humiliated him, now on her own challenging journey of healing and self-discovery.